I'm trying for a new haircut here. I'm keeping this long and shaving the sides. It probably looks the same to everyone, but it's different for me. Let me know your thoughts. Is it too dark? Can you see that? Short back and sides, a lesbian cut. Right, so I mean, all of you know now that I do travel a fair bit. I try and travel as much as I can, but I seem to have the worst luck when it comes to flying. Or maybe it's just because my chances are increased for having bad luck. This is like the second video I've made in a few weeks where I'm talking about just shit flying experiences. And I have a whole lot more, so it's like airline terrors. Oh, that's probably not a good term. Airline horrors? Flying horrors? Mishaps of flying? First world problems is probably the correct name. So this situation, I was flying to London to make a short film about my friend Callum. Hi Callum, if you're watching, probably not. And I flew on, actually I won't say the airline, but you know, it was called Qatar Airways. But I have to say a very good airline because I flew to and from there. But the first leg from Melbourne to Doha, was not the best experience. So I arrived at Melbourne Airport and my mum drove me and we decided to check in and all the rest of it. And I remember in the check-in queue there was a family, you know, 2 parents and 2 kids who were just causing so much shit. They're one of those families that had like 15 bags and the kids were just running riot up and down the check-in queues, in and out of the queue. They were over their luggage allowance, so they were like opening things and pulling them out in the airport. Fucking hate people that do this. Anyway, I got called up. I went ahead of them or next to them and checked in and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that ended. Then I went and had a little drink with my mum, said goodbye to her, and then went through to immigration and through security. So I go through security, no problem. Get to immigration and there's the family again. So while I was having a drink, the family must have gotten through and they're in the machines where you put the passports in and it takes a photo and you just go straight through. And the kids are literally like laying on the ground and just screaming, like throwing a tantrum. One of them is anyway, the other one's not. And the dad's literally just standing there being like, get up, just get up. We're not going anywhere, we're not going anywhere. Not giving a shit, not like picking the child up, just letting it jump in the middle of Australian immigration. No fucking worries, yeah, good idea. So anyway, I scan my passport, go through, ignore them. I'm just like, oh my God. But they checked in with Qatar, so there was a good chance they were going to be on my plane. So anyway, I go all the way through, I sit down, I wait for my flight, and eventually I board the plane. Now, I had pre-selected my seat, and I was meant to be in the front row of economy, of cattle class. Woo. And I did this online before the flight. So when I checked in, I didn't even bother looking at my ticket. And I get onto the plane, and I'm like, not in the first row. I'm pushed back about 4 rows. I'm just like, oh, that's weird. And the first row is just taken up by like kids, like babies and parents, screaming as well. And anyway, I sit in my seat, I'm on the aisle, and the guy sitting next to me starts to try and make the awkward conversation. I don't really speak to people on planes. I'm like, shut up. And he tries to make conversation with me, and it becomes very obvious that he's not comfortable with flying. He was like, oh, you know, how you doing? Oh, how's the start of your trip been? And I said, oh, look, I was actually meant to sit up there, but I was moved here. And he said, oh, I was meant to sit at the front as well, but they moved me and I didn't know. And I went, oh, okay, that's weird. So they must have just given it to the families and were like, fuck off, single males. Anyway, so people were getting, you know, there's screaming at the front of the plane already. He was trying to make weird, mundane conversation. And then opposite me were the 4 seats, and then there's the 3 on the other side. So in the 4 seats, they're all empty opposite me. And then behind, there's a woman sitting on the edge, on the aisle seat, who's clearly not meant to be there. And this family comes up and says, oh, excuse me, madam, you're sitting out of seat. And she's just literally sitting there, just going like, nope, I sit here. And she's like, well, yeah, but this is our ticket. And she goes, no, I asked sit here. I must sit on aisles. I sit here. And she wasn't in the right seat. She was in the complete wrong seat, but she just decided to sit down and made a big fuss over it. So anyway, the family, she's got like a young daughter, goes and gets a flight attendant, and she comes up and she says, madam, can I see your ticket? She's like, no, I sit here. It didn't move. It was just so stubborn in sitting here, in sitting where she was. Anyway, that's all happening. The guy next to me, I'm just like, oh my God, like, why is this happening? Because they're all like built up next to my face. The guy next to me is like looking around going, oh, because there's a problem of some sort, and he's just having a little bit of a freak out. So I'm just like, oh, I can't deal with this. So I grab my Bose noise cancelling headphones, put them on, turn them on, and one ear is broken. Oh my God, what else can go wrong on this flight already? I hasn't even taken off and there's stuff going wrong. This airline stewardess, or the cabin crew, she's like, okay, no worries, I'll go and speak to someone. So she goes and speaks to someone. There's this family still just sitting there. The 4 seats opposite me are still empty. We realize that where she's sitting, she's actually 2 rows ahead, but there's a guy that's sitting on the aisle seat. And that was his seat, and the seat in the middle was empty. And so the cabin crew comes back and speaks to that guy, and she's like, oh look, do you mind just sitting there? So this woman gets out of someone else's seat and just sits in this. So he's just like, yeah, no worries. He was a young guy, he didn't care. So he just moved into what was supposed to be her seat. And the cabin crew says, sorry madam, you've got your aisle seat down here. And she's like, no, I no move. And she's like, it's an aisle seat. She goes, is it aisle? And she literally like scrambled out and pushed past family members to get in her seat and sit there. And I'm just like, what the fuck? How rude can people be? Why do people, I swear to God, when people walk into airports, a stupid switch goes on in their heads. Why do people start acting like complete fucktards when they get into planes? So anyway, this family sits down and then it starts to settle down. The guy next to me is like a fucking meerkat going like, ooh, what's going on? The 4 seats are still empty. And I'm thinking, you know who I haven't seen get on this plane yet? The family that were chucking tantrums in the check-in queue and in immigration. And long and behold, they walk in, I see them in the aisle, I see them walking up the aisle, and the cabin crew goes, oh yes, you're just here. They're sitting opposite me. I'm like, honestly, couldn't care if the plane crashed right now. It got to the point, there were so many kids in this front section, it was like a food fight, almost. Like shit was getting thrown. Parents were like screaming at their kids and not, I'm like, this is the worst thing, the worst start to a flight ever. Anyway, they sit down and they're still screaming and carrying on and finally, after like 5 minutes of them just like being absolute pricks, the father decides to hit one of them. And the guy next to me is just like, oh my God, is someone gonna do it? And I'm thinking there going, it's not our problem. It is not our kids, we don't know who they are. I knew the context of what is going on in the airport in the lead up. He doesn't know shit. And the kids actually stopped then. And once the flight started to, you know, get taxied out, they turned the entertainment system on. I was just like, oh my God, just watch a movie and ignore everyone. Once the flight got airborne, it started to settle a little bit and the kids were running up and down and their parents weren't doing shit about it. Almost hit them myself. And the rest of the flight was pretty good, but it just felt like you were constantly like, people were just constantly getting up and moving around and giving things to relatives, and I'm just like, oh my God, just what am I doing in here? Thankfully, on the legs to London in the A380, I was upstairs in the small economy section, thank God. Same when I came back, and then the flight on the way home was fine. So hence Qatar gets 10 points. It was just that first experience was not good. And sometimes those experiences can really paint your picture of anything, whether it's an airline or whether it's a place you visit. If you have a negative experience, you're going to generalize it to things. But if you had an experience like that, particularly with kids on like long haul flights, have you had that experience? Have you dealt with it in a particular way? Have you been asked to move? Have you thrown your headset at them? Have you just put the blanket over them? What have you done? I'm keen to hear. Write it in the comments below and let's chat-a-roo. As I said at the start of this, I've got plenty of these airline terrors, no, what did I call it? Horrors, airline horrors. Not quite up to snakes on a plane, but look, knowing me, it'll happen to me. Thanks for watching, and until next time, that's a wrap.